Chosen one. This message is not presented as entertainment, nor is it framed as coincidence. Across many belief systems, moments of reflection often arise during periods of uncertainty rather than comfort. This pattern is consistent in religious texts, psychological studies on self-awareness, and historical accounts of personal transformation. Messages that prompt pause and reconsideration frequently appear after prolonged confusion, delay, or emotional fatigue. These are typically the periods when individuals are most receptive to guidance that encourages reassessment rather than immediate action. From an analytical perspective, such moments often mark decision points. They are not characterized by fear, but by heightened awareness. Ignoring internal or external signals does not necessarily prevent progress, but it can delay clarity and resolution. Remaining attentive, however, often leads to improved judgment and better long-term outcomes. In this context, the message presented is not emotional persuasion, but a call for discernment and responsibility. The underlying principle is not urgency for its own sake, but timing. Significant shifts rarely require haste. Instead, they demand precision. Being positioned differs from being rushed. When individuals recognize this distinction, patterns that once appeared obstructive begin to make sense. Circumstances may not change immediately, but responses to those circumstances do. This change in response often leads to clearer priorities, reduced distraction, and more deliberate choices. Discernment plays a central role in this process. It is not a mystical ability, but a skill developed through reflection, experience, and attentiveness. When discernment sharpens, distractions lose their influence, and opportunities are evaluated based on readiness rather than desperation. This is particularly important when responsibility increases, because clarity is required to manage what comes next. Confusion at such stages can lead to missteps, while awareness supports stability. A recurring question often appears during these transitional periods: readiness. Readiness does not imply certainty or complete understanding. Instead, it reflects willingness. Being ready means accepting guidance even when outcomes are not fully visible. It means recognizing patterns, pauses, and subtle indicators that suggest adjustment rather than continuation on autopilot. Throughout history, moments described as ordinary have frequently carried disproportionate influence. Many pivotal changes began quietly, without spectacle. The importance of such moments often becomes clear only in hindsight. What distinguishes them is not intensity, but alignment. Alignment occurs when individuals recognize that their current position is connected to a broader sequence of events rather than isolated circumstances. The concept of a private message can be understood as personal relevance rather than exclusivity. Guidance resonates differently depending on an individual's context, experiences, and readiness. While the information itself may be broadly applicable, its timing and impact are often specific. This is why similar messages can appear repeatedly, yet only become meaningful at certain stages of life. From a practical standpoint, readiness involves releasing outdated assumptions, habits, or expectations that no longer serve a constructive purpose. It does not require abandoning logic or evidence, but it does require openness. Trust, in this sense, is not blind acceptance, but informed patience. It is the ability to proceed without forcing conclusions prematurely. Many individuals report heightened awareness during such phases. This may include increased attention to recurring numbers, symbols, colors, or patterns. Psychologically, this can be explained as selective attention, where the mind becomes attuned to specific stimuli. Spiritually, these experiences are often interpreted as guidance cues. Regardless of interpretation, the practical function remains the same. They encourage reflection and intentional decision-making. Small coincidences often serve as prompts rather than instructions. They invite consideration, not immediate action. When observed without fixation or dismissal, they can contribute to a broader understanding of direction. Patterns become meaningful not because of superstition, but because they encourage awareness of context and timing. Accepting readiness also involves acknowledging responsibility. Guidance is not passive. It requires participation. Decisions, reflections, and consistent behavior reinforce clarity over time. This process gradually reduces fear-driven reactions and increases confidence, grounded in understanding rather than impulse. The notion of being chosen can be reframed as being accountable. Not everyone pauses to reflect when prompted. Not everyone responds to subtle indicators. Those who do often develop stronger self-regulation and situational awareness. These traits are essential for navigating complex circumstances, particularly when future demands increase. Ignoring signals, whether internal intuition or external feedback, often results in prolonged difficulty. This is not presented as punishment, but as consequence. Awareness shortens learning cycles. Inattention extends them. Recognizing this distinction shifts responsibility away from external forces and toward conscious participation. Throughout personal development literature and spiritual traditions alike, guidance is described as persistent rather than forceful. It appears through repeated reminders, insights, or realizations until acknowledged. Distractions may delay recognition, but they rarely eliminate it. The function of persistence is protective, not coercive. When guidance intensifies, it often coincides with increased capacity. This does not mean ease, but preparedness. Individuals may notice clearer thinking, heightened intuition, or stronger conviction regarding certain choices. These developments typically indicate that prior experiences have built sufficient foundation for the next stage. Such periods may also bring increased sensitivity to symbolic elements, numbers, colors, animals, or objects. From a psychological lens, symbols function as cognitive anchors. They help organize meaning and reinforce focus. From a spiritual lens, they are seen as communication tools. In either case, their purpose is to encourage attentiveness rather than dependency. Understanding symbolic patterns requires balance. Overinterpretation can lead to confusion, while complete dismissal can result in missed insight. Effective discernment lies between these extremes. It involves observation, reflection, and practical application rather than speculation. Historical and cultural traditions frequently reference ancient wisdom passed through texts, rituals, and oral teachings. This knowledge often emphasizes pattern recognition, ethical alignment, and self-awareness. Its relevance persists because it addresses recurring human challenges rather than specific eras. Engagement with such wisdom does not require withdrawal from modern life. Instead, it enhances navigation within it. Recognizing patterns, anticipating outcomes, and understanding cycles improves decision-making across personal and professional domains. Prophetic language, when examined critically, often functions as metaphor rather than prediction. It highlights tendencies, consequences, and trajectories. Understanding this allows individuals to prepare rather than react. Preparation reduces uncertainty and supports stability during change. As awareness increases, connections between events become more apparent. This does not imply loss of agency. Instead, it reinforces the understanding that actions occur within broader systems. Recognizing this context enhances responsibility rather than diminishing it. Discernment, again, becomes essential. It protects against misinformation, impulsive reactions, and misplaced trust. Discernment is not judgment of others, but clarity within oneself. It allows individuals to act with consistency and integrity, even when circumstances are ambiguous. Colors, often mentioned symbolically, can influence perception and emotion. Research confirms that color affects mood and attention. Whether interpreted psychologically or spiritually, heightened sensitivity to such details encourages presence and reflection. Intuition, commonly misunderstood, is the synthesis of experience and perception. It is not opposed to logic but complements it. When intuition strengthens, individuals often make faster and more accurate assessments, particularly in complex situations. Trusting intuition requires restraint, acting without panic, observing outcomes, and adjusting accordingly refines judgment over time. This process builds confidence grounded in experience rather than assumption. Periods of accelerated change can feel overwhelming. Events may align rapidly, creating the impression of momentum beyond control. However, acceleration often follows prolonged stagnation. When readiness meets opportunity, movement increases. Recognizing acceleration as alignment rather than chaos reduces resistance. Remaining attentive allows individuals to respond effectively instead of reacting emotionally. This distinction determines whether change becomes destabilizing or constructive. Symbols and patterns may appear more frequently during such phases. Their function is reinforcement, not instruction. They remind individuals to remain observant, grounded, and responsive rather than distracted. Life shifts rarely occur without discomfort. Familiar structures may dissolve, requiring adaptation. Resistance is natural, but acceptance enables growth. Letting go of outdated frameworks creates space for development that was previously inaccessible. Unexpected opportunities often emerge during transitions. While they may challenge comfort zones, they also reveal capabilities previously untested. Growth frequently occurs through such recalibration. Truth, in most cases, is revealed incrementally. Gradual understanding prevents overwhelm and encourages integration. Each insight builds upon the last, forming coherence over time. Patience is tested during this process. Immediate clarity is rare. Reflection and consistency are required. Those who remain attentive often experience deeper understanding and more sustainable outcomes. Challenges that arise during guidance phases are not indicators of failure. They function as refinement. Each obstacle highlights areas requiring adjustment or strengthening. Tests of trust often appear when evidence is limited. Choosing alignment over fear during such moments reinforces resilience. Over time, this builds confidence rooted in experience. Decisions made during these periods carry disproportionate impact. Awareness of this weight encourages deliberate action. Small choices, consistently aligned, often produce significant long-term results. Spiritual or personal rewards are rarely immediate. They accumulate through sustained behavior rather than isolated acts. Alignment amplifies results, while inconsistency diffuses them. Miracles, when examined objectively, often appear as timely resolutions rather than extraordinary events. Their significance lies in timing and relevance rather than spectacle. Recognizing these moments requires attentiveness. When acknowledged, they reinforce trust in the process and encourage continued alignment. At this stage, the emphasis shifts toward preparation. Awareness without action leads to stagnation. Action without awareness leads to error. Balance is essential. This preparation involves reflection, restraint, and readiness to adjust. Accepting guidance does not eliminate effort, but it directs it more efficiently. As alignment strengthens, limitations often dissolve gradually rather than suddenly. Progress becomes noticeable through stability rather than intensity. This marks the threshold of transformation. Not an ending, but a transition. The question remains not whether change is coming, but how it will be navigated. The continuation of this process requires a shift from recognition to application. Awareness alone does not produce results unless it is translated into consistent behavior. Many individuals reach a point where understanding increases, but action remains limited. This gap is where stagnation often occurs. Progress depends on integrating insight into daily decisions rather than reserving it for moments of reflection alone. As alignment deepens, individuals may notice that familiar strategies no longer yield the same results. This is not failure, but indication. Growth often renders old methods ineffective because they were designed for earlier stages. Adjusting approaches becomes necessary to match increased responsibility and awareness. Resistance to this adjustment typically stems from comfort, not logic. During such transitions, uncertainty can intensify. This is expected. When previous reference points lose relevance, clarity may temporarily diminish before stabilizing at a higher level. Understanding this pattern helps prevent misinterpretation of uncertainty as regression. In reality, it often signals recalibration. External circumstances may also begin to shift. Relationships, professional environments, or personal priorities can change in ways that feel abrupt. These shifts are rarely random. They tend to reflect internal changes that have already occurred. External alignment usually follows internal realignment, not the reverse. Discernment becomes increasingly important as options expand. Opportunities may appear similar on the surface, but differ significantly in long-term impact. Evaluating them requires patience and consistency rather than urgency. Decisions made under pressure often prioritize immediate relief over sustainable growth. At this stage, boundaries become essential. Increased awareness often attracts additional demands, expectations, or distractions. Without clear boundaries, energy becomes fragmented, reducing effectiveness. Establishing limits is not avoidance but prioritization. It ensures that attention is directed toward what aligns rather than what merely demands response. Patterns of repetition may also become more noticeable. Situations that recur with slight variation often highlight unresolved lessons. Addressing them directly prevents further repetition. Ignoring them typically results in escalation rather than resolution. Reflection remains a key practice. Regular evaluation of choices, motivations, and outcomes reinforces learning. This does not require excessive introspection, but consistent honesty. Recognizing misalignment early allows for correction. Before consequences compound. Trust continues to develop through experience rather than assumption. Each aligned decision that produces stability reinforces confidence. Over time, this confidence becomes internalized, reducing dependence on external validation. Periods of acceleration may alternate with periods of stillness. Both serve distinct purposes. Movement facilitates progress, while stillness consolidates understanding. Viewing stillness as inactivity often leads to unnecessary action that disrupts integration. As responsibilities increase, the margin for impulsive decisions decreases. Precision becomes more valuable than speed. This shift often challenges habits formed during earlier stages when experimentation carried lower risk. Support systems may also evolve. Guidance can come through conversations, observations, or unexpected sources. Remaining receptive without becoming dependent maintains balance. External input should inform judgment, not replace it. Clarity often improves when attention is simplified. Reducing unnecessary inputs, whether information, obligations, or distractions, creates space for discernment. Complexity is not inherently valuable. Effectiveness often increases through subtraction rather than addition. During this phase, self-trust strengthens. Decisions become less reactive and more deliberate. Emotional responses stabilize as understanding deepens. This does not eliminate emotion, but contextualizes it. Challenges that arise now tend to test consistency rather than capability. The question is no longer whether one can act, but whether one will act in alignment repeatedly. Consistency determines outcomes more reliably than intensity. Long-term direction becomes clearer through cumulative action. Singular moments rarely define trajectory. Patterns of behavior do. This understanding reduces pressure on individual decisions while emphasizing sustained alignment. At times, guidance may feel subtle rather than explicit. This encourages independent application rather than reliance on instruction. Autonomy is a natural outcome of maturity. As integration progresses, confidence becomes quieter. Validation is sought less frequently. Satisfaction shifts from external recognition to internal coherence. Missteps may still occur. Their impact is reduced by quicker recognition and correction. Learning cycles shorten as awareness increases. Eventually, a sense of steadiness replaces urgency. Progress feels intentional rather than reactive. Direction stabilizes even as circumstances change. This stage does not signify completion. It marks readiness for sustained responsibility. Growth continues, but with greater efficiency and less resistance. The process reinforces a central principle. Clarity emerges through alignment, not anticipation. Understanding unfolds through participation, not observation. At this point, preparation transitions into embodiment. Insight is no longer separate from action. Decisions reflect understanding without requiring constant deliberation. The emphasis shifts toward maintenance. Alignment must be sustained through consistent attention. Neglect allows drift. Maintenance preserves progress. External outcomes may begin to reflect internal stability. Results become more predictable, not because of control, but because of coherence. This coherence reduces conflict between intention and behavior. Energy is conserved rather than dissipated. The final consideration centers on responsibility. Increased clarity carries obligation. Awareness without application loses value over time. Responding to guidance now involves trust in accumulated experience. Doubt diminishes as evidence accumulates through lived outcomes. The path forward becomes less about seeking confirmation and more about exercising judgment. This transition signifies maturity. Ultimately, the process leads to integration rather than conclusion. Alignment becomes a practice, not an event. The journey continues, but with greater steadiness, clarity, and effectiveness. This is the outcome of sustained discernment, consistent action, and deliberate response to guidance. As the process reaches this stage, the focus shifts from momentum to sustainability. What has been built through awareness, adjustment, and consistent action now requires preservation. Progress that is not maintained gradually loses its structure. This phase is less visible, but equally important because it determines whether earlier efforts translate into long-term stability. Sustainability depends on routine alignment rather than constant motivation. Motivation fluctuates, but structure remains reliable. Individuals who rely solely on emotional drive often struggle to maintain direction when external conditions change. Those who establish clear routines grounded in understanding are better equipped to remain steady during uncertainty. At this point, priorities become clearer. Not everything requires attention, and not every opportunity deserves pursuit. Discernment is exercised through selection. Choosing what to decline becomes as important as choosing what to accept. This selectivity protects focus and prevents dilution of effort. Internal dialogue also evolves. Self-assessment becomes factual rather than critical. Mistakes are identified without exaggeration, and successes are acknowledged without over-identification. This balanced perspective supports continued growth without creating pressure to perform. Responsibility expands alongside capability. Increased clarity often places individuals in positions where their decisions affect more than just themselves. This influence requires ethical consideration and consistency. Acting with integrity becomes non-negotiable because misalignment now carries broader consequences. Periods of quiet productivity may replace visible progress. Results continue to develop, but without constant external markers. This can feel unfamiliar to those accustomed to immediate feedback. Understanding that effectiveness does not always announce itself helps maintain confidence during these phases. External validation becomes less central. Approval may still be appreciated, but it no longer determines direction. Decisions are guided by alignment rather than reaction. This independence reduces susceptibility to pressure and comparison. Challenges that arise during this phase often test patience rather than skill. Delays, repetition, or gradual outcomes may feel frustrating, but they serve a stabilizing function. They reinforce endurance and reinforce commitment to long-term objectives. Reflection remains necessary, though less frequent. Instead of constant analysis, periodic review is sufficient. This prevents overthinking while ensuring alignment is maintained. Adjustments are made deliberately rather than impulsively. Relationships may continue to shift. Some connections strengthen through mutual alignment, while others naturally recede. This is not a failure of connection, but an adjustment of relevance. Maintaining clarity about shared direction helps navigate these changes without unnecessary conflict. Confidence becomes grounded in experience. Decisions are informed by patterns observed over time rather than isolated moments. This reduces anxiety around uncertainty because responses are based on accumulated understanding. The ability to pause improves. Not every situation requires immediate resolution. Delayed response often leads to clearer outcomes. This restraint protects against reactive decisions that compromise long-term stability. Energy management becomes a priority. Attention is directed toward activities that produce meaningful results. Distractions are identified and minimized. This conservation of energy supports consistency and prevents burnout. Learning continues, but with greater discrimination. Information is evaluated for relevance rather than novelty. This selective approach strengthens depth of understanding and reduces cognitive overload. At this stage, clarity is less dramatic but more dependable. It does not arrive as sudden insight, but as steady recognition. This reliability is a sign of integration. Responsibility also includes self-care. Physical, mental, and emotional maintenance support sustained effectiveness. Neglecting these areas undermines progress, regardless of insight or intention. Decision-making becomes more efficient. Less time is spent deliberating because criteria are clear. This efficiency increases capacity without increasing strain. External circumstances may still fluctuate. Stability does not imply control over events, but consistency in response. This distinction reduces stress and improves adaptability. The emphasis now lies in stewardship. What has been entrusted, whether roles, resources, or influence, must be managed responsibly. This stewardship reinforces purpose through action rather than assertion. Moments of doubt may still occur, but they no longer dominate. Doubt is recognized as information rather than obstruction. It signals areas requiring review rather than reasons to halt progress. As alignment stabilizes, fulfillment becomes quieter. Satisfaction comes from coherence rather than achievement alone. This internal consistency supports resilience during setbacks. Long-term perspective strengthens. Short-term discomfort is contextualized within broader objectives. This perspective reduces impulsive deviation and reinforces commitment. The process encourages humility. Understanding that clarity is maintained through attention prevents complacency. Regular reassessment keeps alignment intact. Ultimately, this stage represents embodiment. Insight, behavior, and intention operate in coordination. Actions reflect understanding without constant reinforcement. The journey does not conclude here. It transitions into maintenance and refinement. Growth continues, but with less friction and greater precision. The outcome is not perfection, but reliability. Decisions become consistent, responses measured, and direction steady. This reliability supports trust in oneself, in the process, and in the outcomes that emerge through sustained alignment. The final measure of progress lies not in intensity, but in durability. What lasts is what has been integrated. With this foundation, future challenges are approached with steadiness rather than urgency. Direction is maintained through clarity, discipline, and consistent application. This marks the completion of the current phase and the beginning of sustained practice. As this discussion comes to a close, it is important to consider what happens next. Information, no matter how clear or well-structured, only carries value when it is engaged with deliberately. The purpose of this channel is not to provide momentary insight, but to support a longer process of understanding, reflection, and informed action. Your next step determines whether this content remains passive or becomes part of an ongoing framework for clarity. If you found this analysis useful, subscribing is a practical way to maintain access to future discussions built on the same principles. Subscription is not about volume or constant updates. It is about continuity. Each script is developed to connect with previous ideas, allowing understanding to deepen over time rather than reset with every new topic. This continuity supports clearer thinking and reduces fragmentation. Engagement also plays a role in shaping future content. When viewers interact through comments, feedback, or thoughtful questions, it provides insight into which topics require deeper examination. This is not driven by trends or urgency, but by relevance and long-term value. Your participation contributes to refining the direction, depth, and focus of upcoming discussions. It is equally important to approach engagement intentionally. You are not expected to consume every piece of content immediately. Returning when a topic aligns with your current situation often leads to better application and understanding. This selective approach respects your attention and supports clarity rather than overload. Sharing this content serves a similar function. It is not about promotion or visibility alone. Sharing extends access to structured perspectives that prioritize reasoning over reaction. Many individuals navigate complex decisions without frameworks that encourage patience and discernment. Passing along content that emphasizes clarity can offer value beyond immediate entertainment. Commenting, when done thoughtfully, adds another layer. Observations, reflections, or questions help broaden the context in which ideas are explored. Constructive interaction creates an environment where perspectives can be examined without turning discussion into debate. This exchange strengthens understanding for both creators and viewers. As you decide how to engage, consider the quality of information you allow into your routine. Sources that emphasize urgency often limit reflection. Sources that prioritize structure and explanation support better decision-making. Choosing where to focus attention is an active decision that shapes outcomes over time. If this channel continues to resonate, it is because the approach remains consistent. Topics are addressed without exaggeration. Conclusions are reached through reasoning rather than pressure. This consistency is intentional. It allows ideas to be revisited, tested, and applied as circumstances change. It is also acceptable to disengage when necessary. Stepping back does not reduce the value of what you have already gained. Clarity improves when space is respected. Returning with intention often leads to deeper understanding than constant exposure. As you move forward, evaluate how insights from this discussion apply to your decisions. Not every idea will fit every situation. The value lies in having a framework to assess relevance. This channel aims to provide that framework, not to dictate conclusions. Your support, whether through subscription, sharing, or thoughtful engagement, helps sustain content that prioritizes depth over speed. In an environment driven by immediacy, This support signals that there is demand for material that respects attention and encourages measured thinking. Ultimately, the goal is not agreement, but perspective. Not instruction, but clarity. If these discussions help you pause before acting, reassess a direction, or maintain steadiness during uncertainty, then they have served their purpose. Thank you for investing your time and attention. Whether you continue engaging regularly or return when a topic aligns with your needs, the intention remains the same: to offer analysis that supports informed decisions, long-term alignment, and sustainable progress. Your attention shapes the environment you participate in. Choose it deliberately. Sustained engagement with thoughtful content is most effective when it is approached as a long-term practice rather than a one-time decision. Clarity develops through repeated exposure to structured ideas that encourage evaluation, not passive acceptance. Over time, this practice strengthens the ability to distinguish between information that informs and information that merely distracts. When choosing to remain connected to this channel, the value lies in its consistency. The intent is not to overwhelm with constant updates, but to provide material that remains relevant beyond immediate circumstances. This approach allows viewers to return to discussions as reference points, using them as tools rather than temporary stimuli. Interaction should also remain purposeful. Engaging with content does not require constant agreement or frequent response. Sometimes, the most meaningful engagement occurs privately through reflection, application, or delayed consideration. This type of engagement often leads to more durable understanding than immediate reaction. If you choose to comment or share perspectives, doing so with intention contributes to a constructive environment. Thoughtful exchanges encourage clarity rather than conflict and allow ideas to be examined from multiple angles without losing focus. This type of dialogue supports deeper understanding while maintaining respect for differing experiences. Sharing content selectively can also have impact beyond visibility. When shared with intention, it reaches individuals who may benefit from structured analysis during moments of uncertainty. Many people encounter complexity without access to frameworks that support careful reasoning. Extending access to such material can help others approach decisions with greater stability. It is equally important to recognize when to pause engagement. Information overload often diminishes insight rather than increasing it. Taking breaks, reassessing priorities, and returning when content aligns with your current situation helps maintain clarity. Engagement